We have a yummy recipe today from Lynn Tolley of Miss Mary Bobo's. If your Valentine doesn't like chocolate, I mean, who doesn't like chocolate, right?
Some people don't.
Right. But if you need an alternative, this is a great one.
This is good. Plus, we're going to use some stale bread that we have laying around.
So we're making bread pudding, but with a twist.
Yes, and a wonderful Jack Daniel's sauce. So first thing we want to do, Meryl, is take half a cup or to a cup of dried cherries, and you can use raisins, but I think cherries are a little more fun.
Yeah.
Pour in about a third a cup of Jack Daniel's whiskey, and we're going to let that soften the cherries. And then while we're at it, I zested an orange, and I put all of the zest from a whole orange, and we'll put that in our cherry and whiskey mixture.
Oh, nice.
So let that sit. Now, if you will help me.
I will.
I have 4 eggs. Start beating those up. We're going to add a cup of white sugar. Now, it could be, you could use half brown sugar, half white sugar while you're stirring that in. Now, I just took a loaf of French bread and just cut it into cubes. If it's not stale enough, you need to put it in the oven to dry out a little bit. And I was telling you earlier, you want it to dry out because it will affect the absorption of the custard. If you don't dry it out and use only fresh bread, it gets a little gooey. So this is 7 cups of dried cubed sugar. I'm going to add 3 cups of milk. If you wanted to make it richer, you could add some whipping cream instead of some of the milk. I'm going to put in about a teaspoon of vanilla. There we go.
You've been cooking so long, you can just eyeball it, right?
Well,
you know what about a teaspoon is.
Exactly, exactly. And that's probably ready. I tell you, on our when you bake this, put a liner under it just in case it were to bubble up. You don't want to mess up your oven. So I'm going to carefully pour this over our bread cubes.
And when you bake this, it does puff up quite a bit, doesn't it?
It puffs up beautifully when it comes out of the oven. And then when it cools, it all collapses again. So you want to let this sit for about 15 minutes so that it does have time to puff up. Now, let's put a little nutmeg on top of this. So I've got fresh nutmeg, Meryl. I think you said you like the fresh butter too. And if you'll take our butter, and we'll start putting that over it, sprinkle a little nutmeg over everything, and let's put our cherries and orange juice back in there. Orange rind, so dried cherries, whiskey, and orange rind. We're going to bake this at 375. Takes about 25 to 30 minutes. And while you're finishing that up, I'm going to start the sauce. This is a half a cup of unsweetened apple juice. Let's add a 1/4 cup of dark sugar. What am I trying to say?
Brown
light
sugar.
brown, dark brown sugar.
Yeah.
Stir that up. We're going to put in 2 tablespoons of butter. Let's put in about a 1/4 cup of Jack Daniel's whiskey to make it good. If you'll stir that, I'm going to start a thickener, and the thickener is 1 to 2 teaspoons of cornstarch. I'm going to add about a 1/2 cup of water because we got to thicken this up. You stir that up, make sure you don't have any lumps in it. And what you're doing is just cooking that enough to dissolve the sugar. I'm going to put the cornstarch in there, and that's
show you what this is going to look like.
Yeah.
Oh, it
it's
just
going
looks
to
fantastic.
thicken up beautifully.
So after you take your beautiful bread pudding out of the oven, you're going to put this gorgeous sauce on top.
And I wanted to give them a few ideas for the bread. If you don't have French bread, you can use Krispy Kreme donuts. You can use blueberry muffins if you have any leftover blueberry muffins, hot dog or hamburger buns. Just anything you can toast up is wonderful. Your add-ins, you could use fresh fruit instead of dried fruit. You could put raspberries, blueberries, strawberries. Wonderful. And then that's a little individual bread pudding.
That just looks fantastic. I think you're going to love this recipe. It's recipe number 5486. It's online in the Talk of the Town section at newschannel5.com. Thanks so much. We appreciate it, Lynn.
Come see us in Lynchburg.
All right.